Hi everybody, this week's Parsha is Parshat Vayishlach. In Parshat Vayishlach, Yaakov is confronted by the angel of Esav, and they grapple and fight all night long. The angel is not able to overcome Yaakov, but he injures him in the foot. And because of this, the Torah teaches us that a law that there's a prohibition of eating the tendon of a kosher animal's thigh. And the question is, of course, why do we have to remember this event that happened so many years ago? Why do we have this commandment of the butcher taking out a certain part of the animal so that we could eat the animal? And the Sefer HaChinuch says a beautiful answer. Sefer HaChinuch is here to teach us that the nations of the world, including the descendants of Esav, will attempt to annihilate us, just as Esav's angel tried to kill Yaakov. But Yaakov survived. And this is to teach us of the miracle of the survival of Jewish people. The nations may hurt us, may cause us pain, but ultimately the Jewish people will survive. As the Zohar says, Yisrael v'Oraisa kutsh brichu chadu. The Torah, the Jewish people, and God are one. We are all connected to eternity that way. And this is an important idea for us to see through Jewish history. Starting next week, a week from this Sunday, is starting Hanukkah, which is a story about the Greek-Assyrian army, more powerful, large numbers of soldiers, well-trained, defeated by the Jewish army that was undermanned, undertrained, underarmed, but miraculously they were able to survive. Parenthetically, there's a class Sunday night at 6 o'clock, which will teach you the laws and customs of and the stories of Hanukkah. We'd love to have you join us as well. But that's not just ancient history. The miracle of Jewish survival is current. And I am very grateful to say that I am a product of that miracle. My parents of blessed memory were Holocaust survivors, and they were the sole survivors of their families. I grew up without grandparents, without uncles or aunts, and without cousins. But they survived. And thank God, the Almighty should continue to help. We try to continue their legacy and their values and the values of their families for future generations. And it's really important from this week's Parsha to teach us how we can remember that miracle of Jewish survival. And one of the things is, it says about Yaakov that he, in Lavan Garti, I lived as a stranger with Lavan, but I kept the 613 commandments. So we need to know that we can be successful and integrated into secular society, but we need to understand we need to be a little bit apart. We need to remember that this isn't really ultimately home. Home is the land of Israel, hopefully with the third and final temple. But we need to remember that we need to be a little bit apart in our mannerisms and our behavior. We have a job to do. We have to bring the divine presence into this world. We have to bring the values that of God into this world. So we can interact in the world and be gracious and kind to everybody, but at the same time know that we have to be a little bit different. We come from the other side and have a different view and different attitude about things. Another great miracle of our survival is the resurrection of Torah life after the Holocaust. Amazing. Unbelievable. The Torah centers of Eastern Europe were decimated during the Holocaust. But now around the world, Torah is thriving and growing. And now there are websites like Torah Anytime and so many other wonderful resources for us to learn Torah. And there's classes throughout the world. And yes, at the Jewish Learning Exchange in LA and around the globe and around Los Angeles and around California and around the entire globe. And we have to be very grateful to appreciate that. And we should be more involved with Torah study and push ourselves to do more and learn more. Our survival is an amazing miracle. And it proves the divinity of the Torah and of the Jewish people, and ultimately it proves the existence of God, because it's illogical that we've survived. I'd like to conclude with an amazing story that happened in the Soviet Union. Stalin wanted to kill out the Jewish people, and he came up with a trumped-up charge against doctors, and he planned on hanging them in Red Square. And then killing out all the Jewish people in 1953. And it was Purim, and a very special rabbi, Rabbi Zilber, was teaching about, he actually had been arrested and sent to Siberia for teaching Torah, and he was teaching and saying over the story of the Megillah, the Purim story. And he tried to encourage them, because people heard about Stalin's plots to kill out the Jews, and they were very depressed and sad and fearful. And he said, so too can Hashem save us from our enemies in the blink of an eye. And one of the inmates, Jewish inmates that were hearing the story, said, what are you talking about? Stalin's planning. He's going to have them hung in Red Square and get rid of the rest of the Jews. All 3 million Jews in Russia. But Rabbi Zilber said he's only flesh and blood. His plans against the Jews will fail, just like Haman's did. How can you say that? Stalin is a man of steel. Whatever he puts his mind to something, there's no stopping him. But Rabbi Zilber said, doesn't make a difference. He's still a human being. It's flesh and blood, just you and I. No one knows what will happen to them even a half an hour from now. The words infuriated Isaac, who was arguing with Rabbi Zilber, and he just left the room. The next morning, someone came into the camp and said, according to German radio, Stalin suffered a stroke. And the man, Isaac, came running in and said, Yitzchak, you were right. Last night at 7:50, you told me that a human does not know what will be with him a half an hour from now. According to the report, Stalin suffered a stroke at 8:23, almost exactly a half an hour later. And a few days later, Stalin died. And the whole doctor's plot went up in smoke. So may we be inspired by the miracle of Jewish survival and the miracle of God in our lives, and may we connect to the Torah and Hashem's commandments as Yaakov did, even in a very bad place with Lavan, the trickster, but he maintained his focus and his attention on being a good Jew. And may we live that example and celebrate Jewish survival, and hopefully soon in our days, the final redemption of the Jewish people, where everyone will be able to recognize God, the oneness of God, and the miracle of our survival as well. Have a great Shabbat.